This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the fastest, easiest, most professional, user-friendly, beautiful, responsive, and intuitive way to make your very own professional website, portfolio, blog, or online store. If you go to squarespace.com and use the offer code THUMBS at checkout, you will get 10% off your first order. And if you sign up for a year, you will get a free domain name as well. That is squarespace.com with the promo code THUMBS.
Nice. I liked how professional you made it sound at the beginning.
It was doubly professional.
Very professional. I noticed that, yes.
Well, you got to try. Okay. And now, this time... It's November 24th, 2016.
This is Idle Thumbs 290. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
And I'm Jake Rodkin.
And we're back.
We are.
Yep.
This is the second week running that we are streaming this episode live to Twitch. So if you are watching live, thank you. And if you aren't watching live or don't know what I'm talking about, hopefully by now you can go to youtube.com/idlevideos and watch the archive of this recording and watch how
Not the full archive
tired and
of all of
confused
this.
we look as we record this
Yeah.
podcast every week. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this week we're talking about Plantet Coaster, I bet, because Nick and I have been playing a lot of it. Nick, you've also been playing Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And I played
Dark Souls 1.
Cities in Motion 1 also on the recommendation of a bunch of listeners. And Jake.
I existed in a virtual realm.
Yes.
Called Earth.
That's true. We're all in a simulation, you know.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. I wonder if eventually in Plantet Coaster, your little people will be able to go into a virtual reality, or, like if they'll have virtual reality
high
rides.
concept VR
and then-
ride?
Yes,
Oh, man.
yes.
Yeah, I
In which
wonder
they
if
can play Plantet Coaster.
Maybe
Right.
when your Plantet Coaster park gets really strapped for space, you can start installing 3D glasses movie theater rides,
Just big boxes.
which are
that
just you build another ride somewhere else, then capture the footage of that, and then your audience can watch that in a little
It's
3D
like,
theater.
It's like how in the new SimCity you can link multiple cities.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Except in this way they're just linked via like
VR 3D glasses.
Yeah,
Just-
it's, like,
yeah,
it's
you're
actually
just
live
rendering a
streaming
scene
the
to
entire
texture.
thing.
Yeah.
Like the camera is actually in real time following another roller coaster car
Yeah.
20 miles
At
away
our-
that is going
at
through
our
a full
shitty
track.
strapped for space park, you can ride roller coasters from a better theme park in like 3D
It's like
D-box.
how you can go to the ballpark and watch opera that is happening in the opera house right now, but just in a cooler building.
Yes.
Except in VR,
Yeah.
which is how opera should be
That's coming next,
exclusively.
man.
Yeah.
You don't think the Met's going to have like a 3D depth camera and let you watch that from your Gear VR?
That's true.
The New York Times sent all of their subscribers those cardboards.
There's AR at the opera, but literally all it does is have the subtitles in just whatever direction you're looking. And then it sort of projection maps them onto whatever you're looking at. So
I was
Yeah.
fine with it until then. I would
Yeah.
be totally fine with having just lenses I could put on that would have super titles that are actually legible to
yeah,
me.
yeah. That would actually be cool.
But then you started talking about them being depth mapped onto a person, or maybe we could have little like cartoon talk bubbles that come up and go. Prr, 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 prr.
From the people?
Yes.
They're wearing like what, RFC chips or something? I don't even know how you would do
You're
that.
just tracking them.
I guess you just track
tracking them,
something
Chris. Just
on
face
them.
tracking.
Yeah, face tracking, yeah. Weird, gross.
Anyway, that's what Plantet Coaster is, because you guys have been playing a lot of Plantet Coaster, and I haven't. So
Oh, yeah,
I
and
assume
this
now
is
that
what
now
it-
I know what it is.
We're describing what it is, yes.
It's the opera in AR.
Yeah.
Op AR, they all call
Oh
it.
my God. Opera.
In our new decadent society, people go to the opera.
The opera.
Those are the two competing formats. There's Op AR and Opera. An Opera.
Everyone sounds dumb in the future.
Well, the world goes opera mad again, and but with a twist.
Opera marred.
It's not your dad's opera.
It's no one. It's really
Yeah,
no one's opera. Anyway, Plantet Coaster. This game has now reached the point for me, Nick, that when I'm not playing it, I just think about playing it. And the thing is, I don't even know if I'm good at it. I don't even think I'm like particularly good at it
Yeah.
or anything. I just always want to be playing it.
Yeah.
Last night, I spent 2 hours making an incredibly intricate, like, theme park entrance facade that looks like a sort of medieval castle with I think 5 archways, and I made park entrance gates in each archway, and then surrounding it there's like a castle with a sort of steepled roof, and then a parapet on one side and a tower with a sort of balcony on the other side. And like I just spent hours making that goddamn thing, and there's literally no people just walk up to it, and then they walk all the way up to the entrance gates, realize there's
shrug their shoulders,
no park inside,
yeah.
Shrug their shoulders, turn around, and then walk away again. And if you click on them, they say that was enough fun for one day.
Yeah, right.
But that's all I've been doing, and I always just leave the park running when I'm building.
Right.
So it's literally just like months of people.
Well, it's just focus testing. There's somebody out in front of the park with a clipboard saying,
That's
"Do you
true.
like this facade?"
Right.
And, good.
People are spending
now
5 more
away.
seconds at the facade.
Yeah, yeah.
It's perfected. Open the park.
So
There's
I
nothing
take
in
it from
the
that
park.
Plantet Coaster has a sandbox mode as well as a pure simulation mode, because
Yeah.
you would have gone out of business long ago.
Yes, yeah. In sandbox mode, there is no concept of money. I mean,
Yeah.
things have a cost, but it's irrelevant because you have your money meter literally just says the word infinite,
Okay.
and it's just not a concern. This game definitely has the kind of it has that Minecraft thing going where there are clearly 2 entirely different reasons for playing it, and they can overlap, but they can also just be totally separate, which is the management component and the creative component. I mean, I guess the Minecraft equivalent of the management component is the survival component, right? Where some people play Minecraft as a game, and some people play Minecraft as basically just like a Photoshop, and they're just literally making things, and they don't care about the game. And I more often than not, in games like this, trend towards the latter, even though I'm never like an amazing creator. I like the sandbox feeling, and I know, Nick, that is your preferred word as well. And I think this game has actually
that's not the case. When I played
really?
Rollercoaster Tycoon, I loved the management aspect. I think the management aspect in this game is just not quite balanced.
That was
yet.
what I was just going to say. It doesn't seem
Yeah.
like it's been very well regarded.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where they just don't have enough events, I guess. It's hard to describe like what is occurring in a simulation like SimCity, where you just hit fast forward and then something happens that like there's always a check on like a particular like if you've got too much residential, eventually there's a curve that says like, all right, now I'm gonna fucking make your shitty earn less money because of these reasons and these factors, and like there aren't enough of those things happening behind the scenes to actually like make anything to impede your dollars,
right?
And so you can just hit fast forward, earn like $100,000, and then that's the end of your game.
Well,
I mean,
so I think there's a fundamental tension in these games a lot of times between the creative and the management stuff. And I also really enjoy management games, right? I mean, I love the Anno series, which are, I mean, super. There's nothing you can do to avoid having to deal with incredibly micro level management. Yeah. But I think there's often a sort of tipping point when the creative sort of package in the game gets so detailed and granular that at that point I'm like, okay, for me this is no longer a management game. Now this is a creation
in Anno,
game.
you're always dropping a beautiful period appropriate building, and then it has metrics, whereas in Plantet Coaster, I think there's always the conflict of, is my shitty coaster going to generate just as much revenue, and if so, why
What's
would
the
I make the
incentive to spend a bunch of
beautiful
money?
coaster in management mode when I could, but then how to quantify that under the hood gets out of control. I feel like
as a game design problem, it's really hard to solve too, because all of the little widgets you put on things that have no sort of mechanical effect on the ride cost money also. So it's like, how do you balance? Like,
even if they didn't cost money, they would cost you your time in the sim.
Right.
Well, I think those things,
even if they weren't dropping your dollars,
that's
you would
true.
be like not managing because you're just making it pretty.
Yeah. I think making
That's
the
a good
stuff.
point.
I think making it pretty does impact what the agents, the little simulation guys, think of your
think
park.
it does too, but that's so hard
but
to
it's
represent.
very hard
in
to
a
quantify.
game.
Yeah.
There's no real equivalent of like.
Because is there like, are they tracking it on a harmonious axis of like how many things are you using that are on the same theme? You can't.
It's
There's
probably
no
just
way.
quantity.
It's got to just be
probably
like you can
like,
drop
how much have you
100
spent on
fucking
it?
cubes, and they're like, "Oh, beautiful park!"
Build the shit out of this park. Like fucking go.
There's just no equivalent to what an actual corporation that exists for many decades, like Disney or something, would deal with like, okay, we're making now a long-term 40-year investment into this park, and like there just isn't
That's
any...
the sort of stuff that you could put in there, though, where you could say, like, the board likes your progress and has given you a bonus to reconstruct in the southeast area of the park or something.
That's true.
Or
That's
you could
true.
have holiday surges.
You could recreate that stuff in the macro, but the way that stuff is actually executed in real life is like, what's the version of this that we actually think is going to be appealing to people for decades to come, and like, how do you model that in a game?
I don't know.
You know,
it would be really. I imagine though, like a Dwarf Fortress or RimWorld type situation where you can just start arbitrarily adding taste, and it's like your audience loves yellow rides, so we've given you $2 billion as long as this part of your park is yellow, and you're like, oh God, what? Jesus, I don't think that market research is good, but I guess that's the money I was told to spend by management.
I mean, based on the success of the Minions franchise, it might be.
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah.
But yeah, right. I mean,
or like Beef Chief has underwritten this quadrant of the park. You must make 3 Beef Chiefs.
But see, even that is like, which I mean, yes, that would be actually hilarious and kind of and good, probably.
That feels like,
and there might be challenge modes in this game that do.
There are
like
challenges,
but the thing that doesn't reflect is sort of leading taste rather than simply following it.
Yes.
Right. Like the actual interesting thing about creating something is that making a creative thing is that you're actually trying to be ahead of that curve, not behind it.
Right. Well, yes, that's true in the eyes of a person who's actually doing the creative work, but the people who are funding your park probably have the opposite. So maybe you could get the push and pull where you're like, okay, fine, I'm going to make it a yellow theme park. What I'm going to get people really interested in is audio animatronics that sing. That's what I'm gonna. If you're like, I know what people actually like. Yeah. I could read the trends. There's no theme park sim where this happens. Nor is there one where it's good.
I think it's kind of an impossible problem to solve, right? Because human taste is so weird. But anyway, speaking of animatronics, did you guys see that crazy video of the Avatar lady? The Disney.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God! So Disney is making, for some reason, an Avatar park land.
It's an Avatar land inside of the Discovery or
Animal Kingdom at Disney World.
Yeah.
So they've been working on this since Avatar was really popular, and they're still working on it now.
Avatar's going to be popular again, Chris, when 4 of them come out in glassesless 3D projection. In 2022.
I guess Cameron's still planning 4 more of those goddamn things.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
The number of them keeps getting tacked onto, and the delay keeps getting added.
Yeah, I think it's now like 2019 or something is when the next one's supposed to come out. Anyway, so none of this really matters. But there's a video of an audio animatronic, Disney's like latest generation audio animatronic, which is going into Avatar land, and it is crazy. The video just looks like you're watching CG.
Yeah.
It is uncanny. It is weird. It is really, really impressive, though. I mean, it's unquestionably incredibly impressive.
I like that when it's inside of the realm of Disney, it's not scary.
No, it is scary, and I'm saying that's what I'm saying.
We're getting close to the rubber-faced Terminators.
Here's
now.
what was scary: that they left the end of that VO line on in the way that they love to do this
shit
now, where she just said, "Was that a good take?" Oh, no! Don't reveal that there's a person. Just leave it be a nice character. Why are you fucking?
But the acting was maintained, and it still looked good.
Yeah, I know. It looked good.
Yeah. No. I was gonna. That was why I sort of had the. I was saying like, it is just unambiguously impressive, no matter what. But just imagine that being attached to a fucking AI and walking around.
Oh, I can imagine it being attached to a fucking AI, Chris. Because that's one of the first AIs it will be attached to. Let's be honest here.
Oh,
God. Anyway, look up this video. It's bizarre.
Search for fucking AI.
Yeah.
And then search for Avatar and turn safe search off.
You'll
either find a fucking AI avatar, or you'll find a James Cameron's Avatar themed AI, or I don't know. You'll find a
combination
of
or you'll find some video content from the Walt Disney Company, intended for all ages.
Mm-hmm.
Of a severed robot head talking.
Or you'll just find that one of those weird mouth robots going blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So Plantet Coaster does raise some interesting ethical questions, is what you're saying, when the animatronics are just as real as the guests. That's the sort of a statement that it's trying to make, I think.
It's true.
Yeah. I saw you streamed this game for a full day.
Pretty close.
You basically, I kept checking in during a full work
crazy
day.
Thing.
And there was a lot of Dot Gobbler content going on. What
Yeah. I don't really remember.
Nick was.
I don't really remember.
I don't remember.
You're in a fugue state.
Yeah, I don't know why that. Like why Dot Gobbler, but
Well, you were making a new incarnation of Thumbsland.
yeah, I guess.
So which
I guess
we're now
that was
on
the
YouTube. I've dubbed it
goal.
new Thumbsland.
Yeah.
New
And
Thumbsland.
It's your yeah. It's I was very happy about that. And it is. You have a Dot Gobbler entrance facade
Yeah.
where park guests walk through the gaping maw of the Dot Gobbler as he also is like shamefacedly gobbling dots.
Yeah.
And then the thing that you actually spent even longer on is this huge roller coaster based on Space Asshole that is synced to the song Space Asshole.
Which was interesting. I didn't know if any of this was possible before, which is always the case with this game, I guess. You just think of a thing and you go, I don't know if the game can support this, and then you try and make it. But man, it works really well. Also, what works really well, like, I mean, so just, you know, the idea of like syncing the song, I knew that they had music tracks that, you know, you could throw onto like any ride. But I didn't realize that it would actually like simulate the audio source coming out of the seat of your like ride vehicle, and it fucking works really well.
Yeah,
when
it
you're
means
in
that
first
it's totally predictable at what
Yeah.
part. Like the same point in the song will always play at the same point in the ride.
And then on top of that, when you're in third person or just like moving the camera around, you still
You
have
just
the
hear
audio
it.
source of the cars driving by going Space Asshole, and it's fucking good. I mean, for one, like it's exactly what you'd want just aesthetically, but then also when you're building something like this, it makes it so much easier than it would be if it just like if it was only in the car in first person, or if the audio source was only playing in third person. But the fact that they've done all of that and it's just
fully
actually
simulated.
So
simulated.
as the cars go by in your test, you can tune if the track is in the right place for the song because you hear it ride by.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
Or
it's
you
really,
can
really good.
ride along in
Right,
first
yeah,
person
yeah.
and listen
Yep.
to the whole thing. Obviously, that takes longer. But yeah, Nick. So like,
And then and then I've started pulling apart like the trigger system, which is really, really good. Where you can drop, essentially attaches a sort of just like numbered icon to a point on the track, and then you can drag that along the track, and that is now like a trigger. So when the car reaches that point, you can attach objects that are triggered when it hits that trigger point. So
you can essentially activate an animatronic or a special effect or whatever.
It's weird. It's weird
it's
how
really good.
Plantet Coaster is revealing in an ultimate way the common ground between video game like content wiring and level design and theme park design and considerations. Because all the metaphors used inside of Plantet Coaster feel very similar to me to an actual video game engine, and I'm sure that, I mean, as they do to everyone, that's what everyone remarks on who's done game dev who then plays Plantet Coaster, is just like the terrain sculpting tools and the triggering and stuff.
And some of that stuff, obviously, like terrain sculpting is a lot closer to video game work than actually designing a real theme park, because there's no like crazy magic terraforming thing.
Right.
But yeah, like it totally, you're dealing with a lot of the same types of design and concerns. And
a thing that I was thinking about, which is which I wanted to ask you guys about, is I watched a video, Chris, that you sent of just like the most spectacular looking theme park that someone has made in Plantet Coaster. That was just like these 6 crazy castles up on hills, and just the experience of the YouTube streamer flying through that was really impressive. And it made me think though that one difference between Plantet Coaster and most video games that you think of when you think of theme park design and actual theme parks is, I think that the spectacle of Plantet Coaster parks is probably meant to be viewed from a third-person camera and not on the ground. Like Plantet Coaster parks, the ones that are the most impressive, have crazy terraforming. They have like huge hills and huge valleys and like underground cave systems and all this stuff. And I suspect if you were to actually exclusively wander that on the ground in first person, it would not have the same sightline considerations that you would like.
Oh, that's interesting.
A first or third person video game or an actual theme park is built mostly to be appreciated on the ground, unless it's like or on the ground and then from very specific air vehicles. But I think Plantet Coaster is meant to be appreciated from the Plantet Coaster free cam, and then from the first person ride cam.
Maybe I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. I think it just depends on how you build the park.
I think
I build for first person. Like I am always dropping the camera down and thinking about the sightlines, if only because it makes it easier to build some of this stuff.
Yeah, because you can put yourself in them, like instantly jump into the first-person view of any person, whether they're on a ride or not.
I think
that,
like YouTubers, though, I think generally speaking, will probably do what you're describing.
I think that's less of a tool bias
for,
and more of a game bias.
Yeah. Okay, because like I when building in Plantet Coaster, which I haven't yet because I suck, suspect that I will be obsessing over, dropping in a person's POVs and getting interesting sight lines and interesting reveals from first person, because that's what's interesting to me about like the construction of Disneyland and about first person and third person follow cam level design.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on who's
But then I know though that it won't look as impressive flying around, because like, the height differential of Disneyland itself when viewed from the air is flat, but it feels incredibly dynamic from the ground. Right.
Yeah,
and that's true of most video game levels. Or like
I know I've
Firewatch is like flat as a pancake.
No, for sure.
But,
although I will say that that's probably something that is changing as modern construction gets more advanced. Because if you I talked a little bit about Tokyo Disney Sea a few weeks ago, because I went there last month, and that park actually has a huge amount of altitude variation. It's really impressive. Like you can get really high up in that park and still be on actual pathways. The whole, not the entire park is like that, but it sort of all tapers up in the middle.
That's cool.
Or towards the middle, and it's in this like.
I still suspect that its sense of scale inside of Plantet Coaster would be way reduced compared to things like that level we saw with the gigantic mountain that has a huge tree that then arches over half the park.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think there's I think even in the Plantet Coaster community, if you look in the Steam Workshop, a lot of if you just sort by highest rated like prefab buildings that people have created, a lot of the highest rated ones are actually pretty conservative in terms of scale. And I think that community, even though it's true that like the most outrageous stuff you'll find on YouTube, where a YouTube streamer's entire business model basically is like always be the most outrageous, like all the video titles are always something like "this is incredible" or "your mind's gonna be blown." I mean, in that video he literally said "this is blowing my mind" about 800 times. But I think once you actually drill down into the community, people get really into like I just for reference to sort of like get a sense of what I could be making, I just downloaded some buildings last night and dragged them in just so I could like kind of delve into like what kind of parts are they using to create all this stuff. And people really like doing shit like once you go around to the back of the building, there's like just a shitty looking maintenance section and like all this stuff. People get really into trying to sort of approximate the actual give and take, I think, of real construction. And a lot of those buildings, like the most popular castle, if you just search in for highest rated large buildings in the Steam Workshop, the highest rated castle is a totally classic looking Disneyland scale castle, not like probably Disneyland Shanghai's castle is actually bigger than than this highest rated one in Plantet Coaster.
That's actually what you were saying about the back maintenance areas reminded me. That is probably the thing that would make the management layer of Plantet Coaster go apeshit. Would be if you're like outdoor vending, or rather you're like your beef chief storefront, if it had a back, and the back had to also have
connect to the road
cemented entrails that connected to the kitchen, which connected to the staff area, and then you also had to run employee shuttles and have and like if every if every ride's operations area also had a tiny path that had to then connect to the back tunnels, and then you could. I think people would actually get into that because the thing that people who are theme park dorks love is like the stories of the secret tunnels under Disney World or whatever. So if you could also use the terrain system to straight up carve your like under area, like build employee parking and all that stuff. I mean, that would probably get boring, but some people would lose their shit over that.
The other thing you could do is have that stuff not be strictly necessary, but have efficiency penalties or less profitability or whatever that are simulating
has to use guest pathways, but you could potentially, but staff has the ability to use staff only walkways that are zoned for that type of human being.
Or if large rides that don't have large operations areas again suffer some kind of like efficiency penalty. I don't know. There are ways you could make that really bad and frustrating, but there are also ways you could probably like beef up the management stuff while allowing people to still make outrageous things, to the point that if you made a park that isn't just completely outrageous, the game's pretty forgiving.
But just there is that YouTube video that is
like
the efficiency, like the person who's figured out how to basically program the back end of their park like a computer. You know what I mean? Because I hadn't thought about that aspect of park management until we accidentally talked ourselves into it. But all of Plantet Coaster's systems for crowd management could very easily have another class of attendee that is an operator, and you'd be able to use so many of the strengths of Plantet Coaster with weird routes and pathfinding and tunneling.
Well, and they already
and
have.
all that
You can
stuff.
already hire staff.
Right,
So,
but
yeah.
you can't. They're not simmed the same way that a guest is simmed, but it seems like a lot of the guest simming, or even if they are, it seems like a lot of the guest simming tools could be extended out to have a backlot.
Yep.
Which would be
But like you have janitors who have their own tasks, and if they're in a part of the park that isn't as dirty, they'll just sort of goof off and stuff like that. They have.
But like the idea of having a roller coaster track that can also be maintenance track, so you could then have a switcher and go into the back, so then you could see a guy go off, like see a car go offline, or where it's like your ride runs more efficiently if you have 50% more rolling stock than you actually are using at a time, and then you get offline and online equipment. Like watching that happen in the sim would be so juicy.
Yeah, and I'll talk about this later, but like. We're definitely in super obnoxious like armchair designer territory
I don't
here.
expect
But
you to
also,
do any of this.
no, I know.
Cool to look at.
But I'm just saying, like for sort of devil's advocate, like one game I've been playing is Cities in Motion 1, which was recommended by a bunch of readers after I talked about wanting a game about public transit. And there are two games in the series, Cities in Motion and Cities in Motion 2, which was then followed by Cities Skylines. And Cities in Motion, those two games are all about transit. So you're not really making a whole city. You're just laying all the transit lines. And Cities in Motion 1, I guess, is more about sort of specific historical and current cities. Cities in Motion 2, I think, more of the SimCity style of like it evolves through, buildings auto-evolve through different eras. And Cities in Motion 1 sounded more appealing to my sensibilities, so I grabbed that. Anyway, point is, as in Cities Skylines or a lot of these games, when you construct lines, you also have to construct like depots and like track to get the train from the depot onto the main line. And like trains will actually just stop if you construct them such that like trains sharing a line end up sort of face to face, conflicting with one another. I mean, that game actually simulates a high degree of complexity with respect to what you're talking about. In terms of maintenance track and stuff like that. So I mean, there are games that tackle those things, and I don't know if the Plantet Coaster team gives a shit about tackling those things.
Not.
But there's also hopefully this game is a sort of perennial seller for them, right? Like hopefully this game is a constantly developed.
I think if you look at the forums and kind of see where the community's at right now, it feels like everybody's super happy with the creation tools, but that the people who are really expecting a deep management sim are a little, I don't know, just not disappointed, but just kind of, I hope you're going to do more of this stuff. So like, if there's anything that they're like looking at in terms of just community feedback, it feels like it's probably that stuff. So maybe they will.
That's been the through line of review. Like I saw PC Gamer gave this game like a 75%, and they were like, it's just the same game as Rollercoaster Tycoon 3. Like, what's the point of this game?
Oh, man.
And I'm like, to me, I'm like, well, the point of it is this like crazy community
That's pretty overly
ecosystem,
harsh.
and like, this game just has this game fosters a level of community and creativity that would just be impossible in a game that was made like over 10 years ago, as Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 was, I think. And so to me, that's like a no-brainer why this game is more interesting than that. But I suspect that they were coming at it from the angle of like,
I just want to plop some rides down
the game and like being really the gamey part of it. And so I think people are really split in their reaction to the game for that reason.
Yeah.
But I think it's amazing. I think it's incredible, personally.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Cities in Motion more, or do you want to wait on?
Yeah, I guess I can, because I'm not going to.
You mentioned it.
I mentioned it. I'm not going to go into great depth because I did get just totally sidelined by Plantet Coaster. But Cities in Motion is really cool. I think the first game, I don't even remember when it came out, but at a certain point, city builder games, like graphics technology got to the point where city builder games just look really, really good if you make a good one. And from that point on, they just still look good, right? Like an Anno game 2 iterations ago still looks quite beautiful, as does, I think, Cities in Motion 1. I mean, it's clearly not a 2016 vintage game graphically, but it still looks really, really nice. And so you get that just really satisfying, like, my city is just, this living, breathing entity. The weird thing is that when you play a campaign, you just go into a city that is completely fully created but has zero transit infrastructure.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
weird.
I'm going to make San Francisco. I'm going to do San Francisco because I live in San Francisco, and like I fantasize about this city having better transit all the time, and so I'm going to make it. And then I go into it, and I was essentially completely paralyzed because suddenly it's just like, bam, here is San Francisco, but it's like a bizarro version of San Francisco because it's not the full scale of the city, which would be crazy to represent in a game. But it's like a weird version, and I'm like, oh, I can. This all like the big beats are there, but it's like really weird, and also there's no transit at all. And I had like a panic attack where I'm like, where do I even start? It's
Monorail.
It's actually really hard to just start from nothing.
So you made the end Judah.
I was going to, but then I basically placed. That's actually what I started with. I placed like 2 stations, except I was trying to make it as fully underground.
You're trying to make the
good.
You're trying to make
the real version,
yeah.
not the one that snakes
end train
around forever.
And then I placed like 2 subway stations and ran out of money, and I was like, I see. So that is as in life, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to start with buses, basically. You know, I mean, you really have to. You can play a couple different modes, but the ones that are a campaign that start you in the city that way are, you actually really have to worry about budget and cash flow and stuff. Also, by the way, this game's conception of San Francisco is very good. When you start a little pop-up, it's very like Europe. It's a hilarious like European view of San Francisco because a little pop-up comes up with a little guy's portrait, and he's like, "Hello, I am the governor of San Francisco. We have many hippies here, but we still need public transportation. Please help us transport the hippies." And then, like, all the loading screens are like, San Francisco, a city known for its hippies, but also citizens who need public transit. It's, like, constantly popping up. And, like, the first or second mission you get is like a guy with, I think, like... It's like a white guy with like a sort of like Rasta headband thing, and he's like, "Hey man, I need to get to my cool festival. Help me build a bus so I can get there."
When was this game made?
Like, I don't know, within the last decade. I mean, within the last several years.
Just like, does it predate Twitter?
Yeah, I was gonna say
good question. Before that was just
when it was
the
like
only thing anyone ever talked about.
Because San Francisco had the first .com boom and bust, but it felt at that point like the narrative was still like
hippies.
San Francisco.
This is 2011.
Like there was that's a little ridiculous. Well,
Also, I love the governor of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't even just go to Wikipedia and figure out who runs a city in the United States, but very good.
Who's to say?
Yeah, it's very. I
mean, it's
absurd.
true that there are hippies who need to get to a music festival.
Yeah. It's true. And it's true that historically that was the reason for the first bus line in San Francisco was in 1971, which is, I think, when the campaign starts, the San Francisco campaign, because different cities started.
Yeah, that's...
I
remember, my parents still talk about when San Francisco got its first bus.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They were visiting.
Oh, and they were going to that music festival.
They were going to that festival. They were like,
they were
there were no buses here.
That's
what my parents told me is what they said to me.
And then they talked to the mayor. And the mayor
said,
the governor,
yes. I've been replaced by the governor.
The governor.
Who
the governor of San Francisco.
My campaign of no new buses ever, I was ordered to step down by the governor of San Francisco, who's putting in the first ever bus.
Yeah.
So that this headbanded Rasta man.
Right. Hopefully the San Francisco Chronicle ran a big headline saying something like, "Governor, mayor, locked in bus battle."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all of the quotes are just from hippies discussing how to get to their
music festivals and stuff.
Yeah.
One day the city will be all buses and barely any trains, says simulation and real life.
Claims hippie.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is a really good game. I've just had all my attention sucked away by Plantet Coaster, which I just want to play all the time now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me think. Nick has a bunch. On our YouTube channel, if you go to youtube.com/idlevideos, there are, I think, all the time you've spent so far, except for like 20 minutes, maybe that was lost due to a crash. All the time you've spent in the new Thumbsland is up on there.
Yeah.
Now.
Yep.
And I mean, it's long. I wouldn't expect people to go and watch
It's like
all
10-hour stream or
like,
something. It was crazy.
all 8 hours or whatever it is on there. But
36 hours.
I think one thing you do want to do when you get the Space Asshole ride to some
just do a ride through
level
video.
of completion, do a ride through video,
yeah.
which would end up being like 3. It's a long ride because it's
The whole song.
No, I did a
he
cut
spliced
down.
it down a little bit, but it's
It's
still
like
a
2 minutes
long.
long.
It's pretty long for.
I don't know why you'd splice it down when you don't have to worry about rider throughput. It's just.
I think it was
Well-
starting to like.
Oh,
like,
you're
here's
to
the
build
thing.
the ride.
Well, I mean, I realized very quickly it is difficult.
There's only so many verses you can keep entertaining
Well,
on a roller
that's
coaster, right?
that's that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's also the long version of that song, I think, because it's the
Oh,
album
release.
version.
Right, yeah,
so
yeah,
which
yeah.
is I think it's slightly longer than
It's
the
a little bit
original.
Not the
longer,
radio
yeah.
single.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But
Anyway.
it is really impressive.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna finish that ride. I'm gonna finish that park, but first that ride.
Got any other ride ideas in mind?
Not really.
Okay.
Write into questions at idlethumbs.net with your
Yeah,
ideas
or
for
beyond-
thumbs.
I mean, generally, I just ask people like, "Do you have any ideas?" And then I just take the good one.
God, my experience with
Space
that.
Asshole, I
My
think I thought
experience
of,
with
but-
that stream was tuning into it in the middle of you making the Dot Gobbler facade, which is like so in this game you can't just model stuff out of polygons from nothing. You have to use just component parts. But they have a category of building parts that it's just called like, shapes or something,
Yeah.
and they're just sort of some basic like cubes and
Just primitives,
spheres
yeah.
and toruses and stuff, I think.
Yep.
And like tuning in as you were sitting there with like a reference picture of the Dot Gobbler cover art and just like dragging these gross yellow like blobs together to create like a gaping Dot Gobbler maw was so weird and surreal and distressing. It was a very
Glad you enjoyed my stream, Chris.
interesting stream.
Another happy thumb stream viewer. Yeah.
Yeah. Nick Brecken streams are something else. They're good though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very pleased that that was like that the heads of the guests, I guess, weren't gonna clip past through that.
Yeah,
mouth.
they just make it.
Yeah, God, there's so many moments when you're streaming this game, you just don't know if something's gonna work, and you don't want to spend an hour trying to make it work and then have it fail because people are watching. It's a weird game to stream in that way because you feel pressure. In the same way that you would feel pressure in Dark Souls to like beat a boss, but in this case, it's like I hope I can make Dot Gobbler, or like I hope this park isn't just a piece of shit. Like it's really strange.
We streamed together, and that's also up on YouTube.
Yeah,
with a
that's
park
true.
that didn't really end up going anywhere. I don't.
Yeah,
think,
it was
but, like,
we just sort of screwed around.
But yeah, I felt really conscious of that during because we sort of traded off about halfway through. And I felt really bad for my part of the stream because I don't think I was making a lot of progress, and it was just, I felt like I was wasting people's time. It was weird.
Yeah, well, it's like it almost feels like it should be in the creative category or something. It feels like you're streaming painting or something,
right? Yeah.
But you don't know how to paint. It's so
Right,
you're just
it's like,
hoping that like
so
as you're
the
putting
first time, let's see.
Okay, like just I don't want to do.
You hope you best case get that wacky face when that woman tried to restore a painting.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like-
As opposed to just
exactly.
nothing.
Right.
As opposed to just smears.
Yeah.
It's basically like streaming a remedial painting lesson because because I'd never even played the game, and you were like, "This is how you make the entrance to your thing," and I'm like,
Right.
"Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's like try using the path tool." I don't. So
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway.
But it's really good. I mean, it's a tough learning curve, I think.
Yeah,
but
it is. It is.
The reason for that is that it's so powerful. Yeah.
You guys want to
Anyway,
take a break?
yeah, let's take a break.
It's break time.
Break time. This episode is brought to you by Movement. Movement designs, manufactures, and will send to you a very stylish and nice watch, a wristwatch.
Yes.
Jake, you have been wearing a Movement watch for a few months now.
Yeah, I think so.
And I know that you used to wear a watch in your life.
Yes.
And then you didn't. I also didn't. How would you convince me to start wearing a normal watch again? Because I didn't stop for any particular reason. I used to just wear one when I was younger, and now I don't. And I don't think I can tell you why.
I think I've mentioned it before, and the reason continues to be true. As smartphones became more and more of a thing, I became increasingly stuck to the screen of my smartphone. And the pattern that I most often had was, I'm going to see what time it is. I'm just going to slide to unlock, and I'm going to just read some tweets. I'm going to check my email. Oh, that's an interesting link. I'm going to read something. And then, like, I would look up and realize that I was just a total shithead who spent 3+ minutes.
And probably never checked the time.
Yeah, and then I'll also be like, oh, and shit. And then
what
I have
time
to look
is
at
it?
the
Let
time.
me take my phone out.
And it's like, if only there was a way that I could just know what time it was. So that's like the dumbest, sort of just saddest story of a modern idiot, but like, you know,
the sad story of a modern idiot. A Jake Rodkin
Also,
tale.
I just remembered that I really liked wearing a watch. Like, I like the way a watch looks. It's a nice, like, you know, I'm not by any means the most stylish person. I just wear whatever, but I like that there's just a thing that I can wear that is interesting looking. Yeah. And but also it means that I don't fall into the sad phone cycle.
If you want to avoid the sad phone cycle, go to mvmtwatches.com/thumbs and you can get 15% off your first order and free shipping, free returns, you know, everything you need to make sure you get the watch you want.
They've got a ton of styles of watch on that site too. They're
They
all
do,
really
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, they have different sort of watch band styles, different watch face styles, and various sort of combinations of those things, including, like, you know, nice leather straps, but also really sort of understated flat black or white. You know, they've just got a bunch of different styles. They're all very nice. And again, that is mvmtwatches.com/thumbs for 15% off, free shipping, and free returns. Thanks, Movement.
You're welcome. That's what they would say if they were listening.
That's true. Maybe they are. Maybe they're watching live on Twitch. Maybe Movement Watches is a sub. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here?
We need to get a Casper so I can talk about my Casper.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, people have suggested we call this episode "The Sad Story of a Modern Idiot."
Pretty good.
I'm happy about that.
Having
episode
titles
ad.
Yeah.
Sponsored episode name.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that would be probably a first. I'm not really sure, but I was going to say having people be able to record those in real time is really helpful to us because we never remember anything we say.
Sometimes I do, but lately I've been really bad at writing them down.
Yeah. This episode of Idle Thumbs is also brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace, as you surely know by now, is the easiest, most intuitive, user-friendly, responsive, beautiful, and professional way to make your very own website, portfolio, blog, or online store. And if you go to squarespace.com and use the offer code THUMBS at checkout, you can get 10% off your first order and a free domain name if you sign up for a year. So we have a new site that is created by an Idle Thumbs reader using the Squarespace offer code THUMBS, and it's a good one. You'll see what I mean. Jared Pettit writes, "My friend and I recently finished a small game we've been working on for a bit called The Senpai, which is a Seinfeld visual novel, and I built a site to host it on using Squarespace. Thanks for the promo code. You can play it online or download the Windows and Mac executables at pntgrm.com. That's pentagram without any vowels in it. So pntgrm.com. This game looks crazy. The visual design of this game is very good. It is Jake's favorite, probably.
Oh my God.
Is what I'm guessing.
It's just full.
And this site, I guess this site proves that you can make a crappy looking Squarespace page. It is possible. I need to stress,
as long as it's intentional.
This is very intentional with just a sort of intentionally sort of archaic looking tiling background. I think this person probably had to work to make this site look like this. It's typically very difficult to make a Squarespace site look anything less than elegant.
It's really intense. I tried to bring it up on the video and could not. It's because just go there yourself.
Yeah, pntgrm.com.
It's really good.
That was created by going to squarespace.com using the offer code THUMBS at checkout.
Here's an important fact about pntgrm.com. Despite the fact that it looks like GeoCities, it is fully responsive and works well on a cell phone and any possible size. So you can have, if you wish to combine the aesthetics of mid-90s garbage with the strong structural underpinnings of modern responsive web design, that is also your choice to make, your bad choice to make with Squarespace.
Yep, it's true. So yeah, go to squarespace.com, set up an account. You can get started without a credit card, so you can make sure that you know what you're getting into. Although it's a website, it's not like it's going to be a huge surprise. You might be surprised though by how easy it is. And then when you're ready to check out, use the offer code Thumbs, get 10% off, get that full year, get that domain name, make your own Seinfeld visual novel or any other website that you want to make. Squarespace.com with the offer code Thumbs. Thanks, Squarespace.
Are we back?
I think we're back.
Oh, hi.
I think we're back. And Nick, you are back to Dark Souls.
Yes.
You're back to the Dark Souls. You're going back in time.
Today's the day that Nick Brecken
On this very day that Nick Brecken
traveled back to Dark Souls 1.
Dark Souls 1.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, no, I when I was playing Dark Souls 3, everyone was urging me to play Dark Souls 1 for various reasons. A lot of people consider
it's the
this
good
game,
one, says everyone.
Well, a lot of people consider this game to be the true Dark Souls experience. Yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it. It's Dark Souls. The thing that's jarring is that it gosh, I don't know. I'm gonna be very diplomatic in the way that I say this, because I am whining a lot about things that it's like
you mean in your streams?
Yeah, because look, when you play the third iteration of a game and all of the mechanics have been perfectly ironed out and everything is perfect. You feel like a baby when you go back to sort of the first iteration of that stuff, which is all it's all there. It's still there. You can sprint, you can dodge, you can do all the same things.
The soul of the thing, so to speak.
Yes.
But not necessarily the creature comforts that.
Right. And yet, as much as that is true, or like I would think that is a very simple explanation for that stuff, people can probably justifiably make the argument that maybe the first iteration of all that stuff is the best version of it, and that what I was playing is just the shitty version because it's user friendly and So I don't know. I'm kind of going back and forth on that stuff, but in terms of the actual game, it's been really fun. Although I did last night. Well, I did the thing that I do when I've had a couple of drinks, and I start to overthink the game. You can't overthink Dark Souls because it will just completely crush all of your hopes and dreams the second that you try to understand intellectually how a boss is moving, or like what you need to do. I mean, I'm sure there are people who play it that way and successfully do it. I can't. I have to sort of instinctually build up an understanding of this stuff without sitting down and taking notes. And so I was just struggling like hell to beat this one boss, which, to be fair, was just a garbage boss. And everyone was agreeing with me, like, oh, this boss is just fucking shitty. Uh-huh. You walk through a door, and 2 dogs jump in your face immediately, and then a man with a club can hit you, and you can die in 1 hit. Yeah. And so you have to run through this level past a billion other stupid dogs to get to this guy. And I must have done that for maybe an hour and a half of my life, just running through this door and immediately dying over and over again. Mm-hmm. It's a weird experience because you walk through this beautiful portal and just immediately get killed, and then that you just do that for forever, and that's your life. And so I finally bit that stupid guy, and then it was just so late that I just told Janelle, I guess we just have to order a pizza because this is food is not happening. And when the pizza came and I was distracted by a pizza, my brain just switched off and I started playing the game, and I was just humming a tune and eating pizza and not paying attention to chat.
Were you still on stream while you were eating pizza?
Oh, yeah. I was like, I can't do this. This is too gross. It was like, no, just social eat. It's fine. And I was like, oh.
Social eat? Is that a thing?
Oh, social eating's a huge thing. Oh, yeah. There's a channel on Twitch for social eating. You didn't know about this?
Chris, we're starting that for this podcast, actually.
Doorbell rings. Pizza guy walks in. I don't know.
Our new sponsor, Domino's. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that I
Did you tell everyone about the taste of the pizza as you were eating it and how good
it
was?
Well, maybe I did actually. I probably did.
Princess.
So once you were distracted by food, and or as my inner suspicion is, once you actually had eaten and were a healthy person.
Yes. Yeah, no, that was definitely, I was thinking about that as well in the background process.
It could be that you were intently focused on Dark Souls because you had no other nourishment and your brain was just falling into a pit forever.
Yeah, I think that's what was happening.
But it's probably both.
But yeah, but once I sort of hit the
once
lower...
you tasted that delicious, once you bit into that pepperoni.
Yeah. Once the super id kind of went away and the id was just remained, kind of like just the background process of my brain just kind of dealing with Dark Souls kind of monotonously. I apparently skipped through a level that I should have died in 1,000 times and didn't die once. People were saying how is he doing this? He's speedrunning the game. This is incredible. What is going on right now?
You should have been sponsored by that pizza. You fucked it up.
Yeah, I should have. It was 4 hours of just grinding away at this thing that should have been easy, and then it literally 20 minutes of just
and then you bolted out of bed in a flop sweat.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I'm just imagining really you waking up from an amazing dream of I can't believe he's doing this.
Yeah.
No one's ever done this with Dark Souls before.
Yeah,
how can
he's amazing.
What's happening?
Yeah.
You wake up with half a pizza slice
right.
in your body.
Exactly. Yeah.
Social eating.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so Dark Souls is still weird.
Well, so we're Nick. You and I are planning on doing, and possibly Jake as well. I don't know what everyone's schedule is, but we're planning on doing at least one, possibly more, post Thanksgiving streams.
Oh yeah, we should do that.
And we're, hopefully going to be very well fed at that point. We're gonna have leftovers.
Yeah.
So maybe we can recreate. I don't know if we're gonna be playing Dark Souls 1 or not, but regardless of what we're playing, I think it's safe to assume Nick Brecken will be in.
I'll be in the
top
form. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah,
hopefully.
I mean, now you have to because now you've promised it.
Right.
Now you've promised that anytime you eat anything, you turn into an amazing.
When I eat a Domino's pizza, I
like,
transform
was
into
it Domino's
a speed.
Pizza?
Oh, it was.
Good.
Where's the nearest Domino's to you in the city? There can't
it's
be
pretty
that many
close.
Domino's in the city.
There's, yeah, there's an Outer Richmond Domino's.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's more than you'd think. They're hidden around. Oh,
yeah.
You can get a Domino's real easy in San Francisco, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I believe it. I just don't ever see them.
Yep. Anyway.
Man, when the Petaluma Domino's pizza closed, that was a tragedy because then I couldn't get it anymore.
Well, then you moved to a city.
Yeah, no. I actually only found it out when I was staying at home at my parents for a while, and then I tried to order the same shitty comfort Domino's pizza that I used to get, and it was not there. And then I heard that I think Giant Bomb also complained about the Petaluma Domino's closing. So.
It's so weird that you're from the same town as half of Giant Bomb.
Yeah,
it's weird.
What a funny thing.
Yep.
So we can move off it after this, but just because you brought up the sort of, maybe the weird, jankier version is actually the better version. I'm not saying you said that about this game, but that's definitely something I've encountered, right? I've talked about my experience playing the original Legend of Zelda in later in my life and just being completely flabbergasted by it. I mean, are you having that experience, or are you finding it's just I
can't believe that Idle Thumbs, who are these fucking chumps? Have they even played a game? Did you hear that they compared Dark Souls to The Legend of Zelda? Fuck. This is a 12-page gaff thread coming up.
Right.
Thanks, Chris.
Guys, what if Zelda was a weird character created monster? I mean, what if Zelda was a girl, but really what if Zelda was
a Dark Soul?
Anyway,
sorry, what? I didn't mean to distract.
No, I mean, I think it's more of a minute kind of subtle mechanical stuff like that. The subtle mechanical stuff is the stuff that I think is the most jarring because it's stuff you sort of rely on. You know,
muscle memory.
And it's like breaking muscle memory. It's you know what it is. It's like the difference between when you've played 6 years of Team Fortress 2 and then they update a patch or something and the movement of the spy is slightly off and it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but if you just only played the spy, now you're like, fuck, I can't kill anybody, this is horrible, because you have to just break yourself out of that mental repetition. When you
rebuild, you'll be stronger than ever before.
Well, possibly.
You're going to be in Dark Souls 1, the better
greatest
one.
Dark Souls.
Man, Team Fortress 2 came out 9 years ago.
Yeah. I had to get out of the games discussed.
It's 15th birthday this week.
God, that's crazy.
Jesus. Oof. Yeah.
Wow.
Don't worry, that's less than half of all of our lives, so it's okay.
I guess that's true.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Let's keep talking about Dark Souls.
We don't need to keep talking about Dark Souls. The last thing I did is I apparently quote unquote trolled the stream, but I didn't do that intentionally. So anybody listening to this, I'm sorry if you watched that stream and felt that I trolled the stream.
Like, you don't need to accuse him.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I killed a boss and then put the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song on,
thinking that left it on for
that I would,
an hour.
Well, because everyone was just before you quit, you have to go to the bonfire and level up. Go to the bonfire. Go to the bonfire. Go to the bonfire. And so I went to the bonfire and I was like, what if I just went to the other bonfire that's like halfway across the world? And the thing is, if you die, you lose all of your souls. If you don't, then go get your souls, back. So like
what made you decide you were going to
why did you do that?
I don't know. I just thought because I knew that on the next stream I had to get to that point anyway.
I'll just save some time.
And I felt like I could probably. I just felt like I could probably speed run through all of the stuff that I just speed run through. Was
that the miraculous one in a million speed run?
I mean, it turned out to be. I got all the way back to the place that I wanted to get, and I was feeling very smarmy about this experience where I was like, everyone was just panicking, like, oh my god, he's gonna die, he's gonna lose all the souls. What is he
you
doing?
Got there, you had done it.
I had done it, and then I walked out the door and I could see the bonfire below me that I needed to reach, and I just literally jumped off a cliff right in front of the thing, and then had to go through the whole thing again. But at that point, if I died, I would have lost everything.
Right. It was like 25,000 souls.
Yeah, it was really bad. I did a bad thing, and
did you get your souls?
People were very
end?
upset. I did.
God,
I did. It was fine.
You had the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme playing literally just on loop the entire time.
Yeah.
Watching that seriously started to feel like there was some kind of insanity creeping in to me, not even to you.
I'm glad that
my
stream was accurately.
He was also silently grinning the entire time. It was really weird. It was really weird because Janelle was in there for a lot of it, and she was like interacting with chat and stuff, and you were just silently grinning into the camera as you would like plunge off cliffs and like risk tens of thousands of souls, while in the background, boom, 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 ba-da-da-dum, ba-do, ba-do, ba-do. It was really, really.
I guess that's not trolling your stream. I guess.
Yeah, it was.
I'm glad you achieved success at the end, because had you fallen off the cliff and then ended the stream, I would probably be leaping across this table right now.
No, it was fine. It was fine. Anyway, let's move on.
So that's what Dark Souls is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reader mail?
Yeah,
I guess I can talk about VR. I don't need to talk about VR. I can talk about it for half a second.
Oh, or that. Okay.
Well, whatever.
You did that Vive Google Earth.
I did. I have Vive, and I ran through Google Earth for half a second, and it's very simple. But
I've seen a lot of people be very excited about Google Earth VR.
It's very simple, but it's maybe one of my favorite things that I've ever done in VR, because it's just Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of the Google Earth data inside of VR. So I have a tiny, in my apartment, I have the smallest possible amount of space that you're allowed to have when the Vive will let you do room scale, where you walk around.
Right.
And so, I can walk around like a 3-foot by 5-foot square of carpet in my office. But the way that it works, since, the Google Earth data is not meant to literally be viewed at human scale, it's meant to be viewed in a Google Earth window, it basically assumes that you're like a few thousand feet tall or something. Like, you're taller. Like, if you can jump into Yosemite Valley, and I'm a little over 6 feet tall, and I was probably a foot higher than Half Dome.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. So you can crouch down onto the floor and get a more more like ground's eye level. But just the feeling of like I couldn't figure out some things in the interface, but the Golden Gate Bridge was an area that you can view from the ground. Like it has a lot of different modes. It's Google Earth. Like, you can just view it as if you're looking at a 3-dimensional television of Google Earth, or you can do the thing that's cool where you put it on the ground and you can wander around. I had to go to the Golden Gate Bridge, wait for it to stream in, and then basically use the Vive controller to like paw along the ground until I got back to my apartment in Oakland. But even that was super impressive. Like, it's low res and junky, but I stood next to my apartment and then turned around and looked at Lake Merritt and looked at downtown Oakland, and then like it has atmospherics running in it that are not like city sim game level, but they're better than regular Google Earth, where there's a little bit of scattering and the sun sets, and it was like, okay, this is actually
that's cool.
The fact that you like using VR to look at Google Map data of real life felt like such a more like just pleasant and interesting application of VR than a lot of garbage. I mean, like, I also played with The Lab, which is the Valve software thing where you can shoot archery arrows and go flying all over the place, and that's also like a really good demo. But like, Dana, my girlfriend, has not ever wanted to put a VR headset on before, but then I said, okay, just come over here and look at this. You'll see something that's kind of cool, and I had just set it up in our entire neighborhood, but you can see it as if you're basically in a hot air balloon.
Right.
And, like, she actually used it and thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
and then I was
yeah.
like, okay, let's go to Yosemite.
Totally.
Let's look around. And, like, just being able to see the Earth from basically that hot air balloon perspective, but having the ability to just drop your body way down low and just look out, like, down a city block. It's surprisingly cool. I'm really glad that Google did that and put it on Steam.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen of it is obviously this wasn't inside a headset, but it was still really crazy. Was just a GIF of someone using it where they started just in space and just completely seamlessly. I don't know how they got it this precise, but they just basically dove directly down.
They probably zoomed out from that location first.
Yeah, I guess that's true. To the Eiffel Tower, and this the rapid change of scale from just seeing the Earth as like a little circle, and then just a matter of seconds later, going through the atmosphere down, like, and just looking up at the Eiffel Tower.
Yep.
But also that looking at it and just clearly telling someone was just, you could tell that it wasn't a cinematic. It was someone just sort of jerkily
just
like
zooming the scroll wheel on their device.
It added a level of, weirdly, even though it ends up being kind of lower fidelity and messier, it added a level of like emotional fidelity to it because I know what it feels like to manipulate a computer. Right. I was like, oh my God, someone's just doing this and it's crazy.
Yeah, no,
it looks crazy.
The way that there's a touch at the beginning of that program that feels un-Google in a way that was really nice. Like, it just opens with, it might have a little bit of music, but it's very light. It's just like ambient soundscapes, and you're just in a desert, and there's like, some big just geological structures in a road, and you can faintly hear the sound of cars driving around, and then you press start, and then it just cuts between like 5 or 6 locations on Earth very slowly, and you can just look around, and then the final thing it does is it just cuts to the planet Earth, and you can just spin it around, and that's when you realize you have the entire interface. Yeah, that's really cool. Really good. That feels like, that's cool. Yeah, like a museum presentation or something, right? Where you sort of get pieces of the living Earth, then you get the entire planet, but then it's like, oh, fuck you. You can just literally go and experience any of those things at any arbitrary point on the entire planet. Like the little bespoke soundscapes aren't present in the world the way they are in the tour,
that would
but
be
like
impossible, right? Yeah.
But whatever, like it just that feeling of that was really cool. I could never get the zoom in to work because whenever I tried to zoom in from Earth, it just kept me. It kept it like on a cinematic plane in front of me, but I'm sure that's just because I'm bad at Google Earth.
Learn to play, Jake.
I gotta edit my INI files and check my keybinds. That's the real mark of a pro Earth.
That's true.
Google Earth manipulator.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was neat.
It's cool.
Seems cool.
I want to play.
And it's free, and also there weren't any ads or anything in it. I was very concerned that as a Google product, a fucking banner ad was going to show up. We'll wait for till that team gets fired and replaced by some other team who has to keep maintaining
billboards
it.
in cities that are just dynamically serving you ads.
That would be totally fine.
I guess so.
If it was completely seamlessly in world.
That would also be creepy. It would be fine, but it'd be creepy.
I guess maybe.
Where you're like,
I can't decide if I think it would be fine.
I'm in like the middle of Chicago, and then I turn and look, and there's just an ad for like the last thing I searched for on eBay.
Right. Yeah.
Weird. Well, who's to say? That's probably better than there just being a floating banner ad that I have to like dismiss with the remote.
For sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just put an ad on the moon. If you fly all the way out into space, they turn around.
Just project it onto the surface of the moon. They just put a sort of scrim over the sun, so it just projects a crazy, like a gobo.
We put a gobo on the sun so that the shadow of the sun beautifully passing over the Earth also is just, showing me like a Bluetooth speaker.
Right.
Yeah.
that I searched for it that I already bought 2 days ago.
Gray.
You bought this last week.
Reader mail?
Yeah.
All right. Claire Hosking writes, hey, okay, so this is about lo-fi programming. We got several emails about those, so I'll read a couple of them. Claire Hosking writes, "Hey Thumbs, I think the thing that used to be a beginner's programming language was Flash. These days, I think it's probably visual. These days, I think it's a visual scripting language like Blueprints and Unreal, since it allows beginners to clip together simple functions and start improvising as they get better at scripting, much like starting with 3 chords and then moving on to pattern picking. That's how I started learning to program. It allowed me to come up with weird, elaborate workarounds for things I didn't understand yet, and it was clunky and fun, but it taught me about designing systems without having to get into the nitty-gritty of syntax. Moreover, the system I started with, Grasshopper, was forgiving. Doing the wrong thing meant you'd get something weird, not nothing. And like lo-fi recording, Weird Grasshopper Experiment has established itself as its own aesthetic. I'd also like to put in a shout-out for languages like Processing. It's lo-fi in that it's totally stripped back, and all the visuals are just a result of you using the specialized, simplified language designed for making interesting procedural graphics. It's not strictly games, but it kind of fits." I'm not familiar with Grasshopper, but Processing is a really cool language. Also, there's nothing stopping you from making a game in Processing. Like, it accepts inputs, so I'm sure people have made games in it. And it is really cool. Processing is like a really, really, really fast language for getting from point A to point B of just get something visual on the screen. Like, it's entirely designed about like drawing lines and shapes and like manipulating colors and it's I think a lot of people use it for, like Claire was saying, motion graphics and image data processing, like reading a lot of data and like visualizing in an interesting way, stuff like that. Let's see. We have other emails about this as well. So Jonathan Decker writes, "Recently, a reader wrote in asking about what they called lo-fi programming. The idea reminds me of players exploring existing games via memory manipulation or sending undefined input, such as with the tool-assisted speedrun community gets up to. The simplest form of this type of expression is playing around with Game Genie or Game Shark codes, something I spent hours doing as a kid. I used to run a GeoCities site where I tested and wrote about various Game Shark codes for the N64, sometimes coming up with my own by modifying existing codes. It's not technically programming, but it can produce emergent effects in the execution of the game and doesn't require advanced knowledge. There's also circuit bending, the art of modifying computer hardware to allow live manipulation of game code. I even found a project to create an input device called Elucia, which enables what it calls code bending, the manipulation of running programs via patch points." That is crazy. I don't even know where to begin with that. Cheers, Jonathan Decker, a.k.a. Lochno.
That actually reminds me that there are now, it's not, I think that the reader mail from last week was explicitly about lo-fi game development, but that reminds me that there are things that we also haven't talked about, like Pico 8, which is that like super lo-fi game development environment that makes what look almost like color Game Boy stuff, and that seems like very rudimentary, but while simultaneously being low level, which also gets into sort of like Raspberry Pi or Arduino stuff. Or there's there's a tiny computer called the Pocket Chip that is basically like a baby Linux distro that is running on a tiny piece of embedded hardware, like smaller than a smartphone. And they also make a version of that. It's usually just a circuit board with an HDMI out and a USB in out. But they make a version of it that also comes with a plastic case that has a color LCD and a keyboard, and like that thing can run Pico 8 on it, but also you can just run really simple programming. Like, it has its own API and scripting language to send data in and out over its really simple input jacks. Like, there's that whole other community that's sort of designed for, this is a computer that you shouldn't have to worry about breaking. You should just be able to type garbage into it and see what happens on the screen, that I think is trying to get closer to the experience that a lot of people had in the 70s and 80s with early, like with an Apple II or a Commodore or something, where like if the system breaks or your program doesn't load, you're just given a prompt where you can start entering code and see what happens. And that, but I don't program computers at all. I'm a bad programmer. Like, I took some programming classes in junior high and high school, but on Firewatch we used a visual scripting system inside of Unity called playMaker, which is very, like, it's not as powerful as the Unreal Engine blueprints, but that Claire's email actually spoke to me on a pretty legitimate level, in that playMaker lets you hook together various Unity behaviors and have objects communicate to other objects, and you can write little chains of events visually. And using playMaker and getting better at it has actually helped me communicate with Unity programmers on our project in a way better way, because even though I'm not authoring code and I check in as little of that as I can into an actual game, the limitations and the behaviors and sort of just the cycles that the game engine goes through are way more familiar to me now than they were when I started. And also, it does allow me to just create totally wacky garbage that comes out of the screen that looks like a video game, even if I know under the hood it's kind of an embarrassing mess.
Right.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's true. Although something like playMaker is sort of, that is a case where anything that isn't working right is just a disaster. Like,
yes.
it's because it's such an advanced system, you almost can't do like subtly weird things with it very easily.
Yeah,
you have to just like, you can have a mess behind it as long as it's outputting like a correct result. You know,
it's the sort of opposite of something like processing, where
right,
where
a
the
tiny little change
Yeah.
can make a weird waver in the line, and
Yeah.
you know, it's maybe interesting.
It's coming at it from almost the completely opposite direction of writing very simple code that yields weird output, as opposed to a playMaker or Unreal Blueprints feels more like you're bolting a really powerful micromanaging interface on top of the system to replicate really complicated game code.
And ultimately probably do something fairly simple.
Yes.
Where you're just like, I just need this to react when the player does that. And like, I can describe it in a sentence basically, but I need to think of the like 20 different ways the logic could hit an edge case or whatever.
It's a decent way, at least, of teaching you the high-level way that a game engine actually thinks about how things work, even if you don't gain any of the low-level knowledge for how it actually works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there's, you know, like Claire was saying, there's a big difference between the logic and the syntax. And in communication, the logic is the important part.
Yep.
You know, so cool. Graham Taylor writes, relating to Lost with free time, hey Thumbs, I was just listening to episode 288, and Chris talking about not really knowing what to do with idle time really struck me. With 2 young kids, a job I commute to, and regular home things to keep up with, I have very little free time. So when I do have a little time to myself, I don't know what to do. Play a game, try to do some creative hobby, finish some chore that's been nagging at me. It's difficult to find the time to play games, and usually I'm so exhausted I just want to watch Chef's Table on Netflix. You're into that, aren't you, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah, you told me about that, and I wanted to check it out. I think this is why, for almost a year now, I've been playing one game, Batman Arkham Knight. I finally finished it, and will move on to another game, but it'll probably take me just as long for the next one. Guess that's how it'll be for a while. It doesn't sound like you guys are quite there with having kids, but I'm sure you can relate to the lack of time for games. Just wanted to share the thought. Keep up the great podcasting.
Yep,
for sure.
Not always for me, but
well,
like,
right now you're in a funny.
Right now, I'm just gonna be streaming all the time. But I mean, like 2 months ago, I didn't play any games for like 2 straight months.
But yeah, no, the path to one game dad is a well documented path.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Speaking of Nick Brecken streaming, Chris from Kent in the UK writes, "Hey Thumbs, watching Nick manage to triumphantly internalize Dark Souls, then screw up in the most spectacular Nick Brecken way possible by attacking the one NPC in the game you shouldn't attack.
Oh, yeah, that happens.
Reminded me why I like the general goof around kind of live streaming over anything else. Watching people play games without trying to necessarily perform for an audience or provide commentary reminds me of the amount of time I spent as a kid watching my older brother play game after game on the living room TV and being happy to take in what was happening without having any direct involvement. It's something I've found other people often don't relate to at all, my brother and partner included, who much prefer playing over watching someone else play. Do you think developers take this audience into mind, especially in narrative-heavy games, considering a lot of people will play something on a shared screen, or should the focus always be on the player's experience? Is the idea of simply watching someone else play and enjoy a game in an era of let's play personalities connecting directly with an audience somewhat antiquated? I've personally liked the idea of simply sharing gameplay with no one and anyone, but have always felt too self-conscious to give it a proper go. Sorry for the long email, but thanks, Nick, for entertaining me and reminding me of one of the main ways I've always enjoyed gaming. Thanks, Chris. P.S. Fuck Nick Brecken."
No, that's yeah.
I feel like all of us have talked about how we used to do this to some degree or another, or at least even just like playing like an adventure game with somebody else, and you're not always in control of that. And like I don't know, that's the way that I grew up playing games.
For me, that was always more collaborative.
That's true.
Yeah, the person at the controls is maybe the buck stops with them, but it's still like most sort of like single player couch co-op experiences were more oh, go there, try this. What do you think about that? But I mean, that's like Telltale Games is going all in on that now, where like they're including like Jackbox Party Pack style stuff inside of their games, where if you're streaming the Batman game, I don't know if this is on for everyone or just at events they do or for streamers. I think
right now it's just events. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have stuff where the audience can
vote on the options.
The audience can vote,
crazy.
and that can, and you as the host can choose for that to just be informative and show up in the UI, so you know, but you still have ultimate control. Or you can say audience votes.
Wow.
And that's I know they've been doing that at some events.
So at that point, if you use the latter option, the player, so to speak, is basically like an MC.
Yeah,
like they're barely even a game player
I think
anymore.
that the stream latency means that that's not really viable for stream use right now. But I know that
that'll probably get better over time.
And they're also excited about it just for being like game night with friends, like so you can have an explicit version of that, of the sort of implicit two or three people sitting on a couch saying, "Say the thing, go to the place." And so that's like the most tangible and out of control example.
How does the audience interact with that? With a smartphone or
a
website?
It works exactly like Jackbox Party Pack, where your game gets like a 5-letter hash that you type in, and then you can see the dialogue prompts up on screen.
That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's because that though feels like it seems like what this reader is writing about is optimizing for just the joy of watching, as opposed to like that Telltale approach feels more like you want to put a controller in everyone's hands.
Yeah, that's definitely not what this reader was writing in about. Yeah, but it's an interesting thing for sure. Yeah, I think it would be tough to design for that as a designer. I think if you tried to design too much for the purely passive viewer, you might kind of end up working again. Like, presumably part of the enjoyment of that is just enjoying what the actual player is doing and how they're reacting to the things on the screen.
Yep.
So you wouldn't want to spend too much time thinking about the passive player, or you might put the focus in a place that isn't what the passive player enjoys to begin with.
Yep. I think
or viewer, passive viewer.
Yeah.
I think we've actually talked about this before, but on Firewatch, the one conscious concession that I think we made to streaming and to watching streams was making sure that our dialogue selection UI was presented in a way so that you could visually see some simulation of the player's thought process as they're weighing between options, like as opposed to there just being 4 face buttons up on screen and they press 1, 2, 3, or 4 when they choose, like making them have to toggle between them, because either in the hopes that either you would subconsciously watch someone go click, 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 maybe actually up one, or letting the person who's streaming be a little bit of a performer and actually choose to hold on the one that they know is the shitty thing to say, then at the last second knock it back up to the one that they want to say. But I don't know how much more you'd want to go beyond that as far as bolting UI onto your game for the sake of an audience.
It depends a lot on the game. I think for a game that's competitive or really systems driven, there's a lot more leeway for that. But I think with a game that is intended to be sort of immersive and story driven, you don't want to go too crazy, or you might compromise the whole experience.
It gets tough when your game is an immersive and story driven game, because then I think the act of how they're quote unquote playing the story is the thing that you're watching, as opposed to if you're watching someone stream Overwatch or something, you get so much of it is visual because the inputs are entirely visual. Like where you're looking, how you're moving is the data that you're putting into the game, whereas a story-based game, very often your thought process and why you're doing the thing that you're doing is I guess the thing that's interesting. So either the streamer, it's on them to say that aloud, or the game has to some degree
reflected in the game.
Yeah.
Theoretically, I mean, this would be bonkers, but I guess theoretically you could design a game where the player, the stream output is actually a different camera view, right? Where the player is in first person, or maybe in VR or something, and the camera that is being streamed to Twitch is actually just a third person view of that guy. So there is a component that is specifically designed.
Have you seen the stuff that Alchemy Labs is doing? The guys who make Job Simulator? They're doing the craziest stuff with third person VR, and it would be less relevant, I think, for not a VR game. But I am an idiot, and I hadn't even thought about it with the mindset of streaming, because all they ever present it for is this will make your trailers look better. This is for trade show presence. But there are people who make cameras that capture depth information now in the same way that like the Kinect used to. And they advertise that stuff for like you can use it for 3D scanning a scene and then bringing the geometry into a game, because the camera has a like regular color vision lens as well as a depth lens, so you could sort of pass it around a room and then the room will be in 3D. But what the Job Simulator team has started using that for is you can put a green screen up and put your person who's in the HMD and the controls on camera, but they capture the position of the camera and line it up with a third-person game camera. Because the cameras that they're using have depth information, they have written a good shader that actually takes that video data and integrates it into the 3D space.
Oh, wow.
So, like, if you're in Job Simulator and you reach over a file cabinet, they don't need to do any clever tricks to make the video...
Yeah.
It's so hard to describe, but like if you think about a person standing behind something and then they reach in front of it, in like visual effects compositing, that is incredibly expensive usually, because you've got to figure out how to mask the part of them that's behind the object and then their hand that reaches in front of it. But because they've captured the depth data, that stuff just works from those camera views.
Crazy.
They've now gone so far as to taking that 3D depth data and incorporating lights from inside of their Unity scenes into that, so they have videos of a person in a dark room.
Yeah.
Waving around like a blue and a yellow like bobble in their two hands, and then it's lighting their video footage. So like thinking about that in streams for VR stuff, I suspect that there's a reality where that makes a ton of sense, where you'd want to have the first person view inset maybe, then what people actually are seeing is like
something that's more cinematic or external.
I'm playing Job Simulator, or I'm doing you could have a far more cinematic presentation in a stream at this point, especially given that you can also, the other thing they were showing is you don't even need to have an HMD on, obviously, because they're just green screens, so a spectator can wander in and just be there. Or
weird.
You can attach the camera to a Vive controller, and then that person can be a camera operator, and it's also rendering the whole scene in real time and the footage in real time, so you can do all. That stuff was crazy.
That's
that I thought about with that was like there's just going to be cheap ass TV shows,
fucking
and talk
filmmaking,
shows and
right?
Stuff, right?
Well, because that's the way that they started, like doing like previs for films and stuff. Like I
remember
back,
the
back,
first time
15 years ago.
The first time I saw that was in the first Lord of the Rings.
I was gonna say the Lord of the Rings with the
sort
of stick camera that's like just a virtual camera.
I remember being blown away as
a
college film student by like watching the previs of the troll fight scene in the first Lord of the Rings movie, where they had a mocap stick on a camera and a little TV screen, so you could be inside the virtual set. But like that, you could just do that with a camera you buy on the internet now.
Yeah.
And Unity.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. Anyway, that has nothing to do with anything that we were talking about now. We go way off into space. Yeah. But that streaming tech was really shocking to me. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
We could replace this whole room with just a green screened room, and then literally just put ourselves in the actual set from Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy that we build to an extremely expensive degree in 3D.
That's fine.
That
would be a fine future.
This shit.
Yeah.
We could make us in a room that looks just like this, but is like 1.5 times bigger, so people think we're more comfortable than we are.
All right. Well, last email probably. Timothy Bridges writes, "The 2 Hitman missions you never knew existed." What? Hey, Thumbs, specifically Chris, did you know there are 2 Hitman missions you totally missed out on?
What?
I did, actually. I read an email subject about it. If you fire up Hitman and go to the Destinations tab, check under Sapienza and Marrakesh, and you'll find 2 extra missions, both set at nighttime in their respective locations, with much of the map blocked off but redone entirely for these new missions. There's a 3rd extra mission coming January 31st. Since you enjoy the civilian areas of Hitman, you will enjoy the Marrakesh mission, and if you like killer robots with flamethrowers, Sapienza is a treat.
Okay.
Just thought I'd give you a heads up because they're easy to miss. Biddy it bails. What?
You won't believe what happens in Sapienza at night when the killer robots come out.
That's a candidate for post-Thanksgiving stream.
It is.
Crazy. That's exciting.
Yeah.
New Hitman content. We thought we weren't getting any for a while.
Yeah.
And nighttime sounds really...
No, that'd be interesting.
Very enticing.
Yeah.
Oh, there's an email from Nick Brecken that says, "Don't click until November 23rd."
What is this?
Which is now, I don't know.
I don't remember.
Well, I don't know either. I'm clicking the link. It's from Mike Drucker, and it says, "Holy shit, this real sad revelation about Mega Man in the latest boss fight books. No wonder he's always been my favorite.
You see this?
He's me."
No.
Oh,
and
man.
Then there
God, it's
are
incredible.
excerpts. Do I read the entire thing or just the highlighted part?
I would read the... Is there like a second page? I feel like the second page was the good stuff.
You don't need the first page for context? I don't know what this is.
So this is the creator of Mega Man
Being quoted?
being quoted, and he's saying, just the image of Mega Man standing, there's a sadness to it. Even his sprite has a certain gravity and seriousness to it. When I see a young child playing alone in a park or in the middle of the street, playing by himself, there's something so sad about that sight, it can almost bring me to tears. And there's something similarly lonely about Mega Man.
Wow.
In the backstory I wrote, Mega Man alone is equipped with the functionality to turn himself off. That very fact imbues him with a sadness. The other robot masters were made for some kind of specific job or work, so there's no need for them to have an off switch they can control. However, a robot helper like Mega Man can make his own judgments, and therefore can decide whether he's needed or not.
Oh my
the sadness
God.
of being a robot is having this inorganic existence.
What?
So anyway, that was robot news for this week, I guess.
Yeah, wow. Wow. Mega Man
that was
facts.
incredible.
Yeah. Jesus.
Wow. Anyway.
So in the back of Mega Man's mind all the time is...
Yeah,
I can just turn this off.
I can stop this. I don't need to go fight Rockman. I could just.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's really good.
All right.
Hopefully there's a Game Genie code that makes that canon where if you press a couple buttons, Mega Man will just explode.
Yeah, yeah.
You just choose.
No, I like the idea that he would just sort of like slowly power down.
They
and
probably don't
stuff
have an
up against the
animation
wall
for
and,
that,
like,
though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well,
Anyway, on that note.
thanks for joining us on that poignant Mega Man note. That concludes our poignant Mega Man notes section segment of this Idle Thumbs. You can write us email yourself at questions@idlethumbs.net. We may well read it on this podcast. Don't forget to check out our live stream version of the show, which is we live stream on Twitch Wednesday mornings, usually around 8 or 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. And then we put it on YouTube at youtube.com/idlevideos. That is still being handled by the tireless Johnny Driggs, who has been putting up our episodes to YouTube for, a couple years now, I think. Yep. But now he can put them up with RealVideo. Mm-hmm. And thank you, Johnny Driggs.
Not specifically with RealVideo. Like, the video itself is real, but it is not in the RealVideo format.
Oh, the RealVideo
yes,
player.
Yes. I mean,
yes.
if it were, how are you going to know? YouTube transcodes it anyway. That's true. That's true. View our Real Media stream at idlethumbs.rm at idlethumbs.net /
video.rm.
CGI bin.
Yes, CGI bin.
Yeah, but anyway, that goes up at youtube.com/idlevideos.
Listen to our cooked MP3.
And we're on Twitter at twitter.com/idlethumbs. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/idlethumbs. I'm planning on sending out a new edition of the Idle Thumbs newsletter now that we have an announcement to make in terms of having
this video.
This very video. So if you want to get in on the Idle Thumbs newsletter, if you go to any page at idlethumbs.net, at the bottom there is a sign-up form for the newsletter, and you will get the next one before it goes out. And I'll also kind of do a roundup of our recent other streams in addition to the podcast live stream. So yeah, thanks for listening. We'll be back and watching. We'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
We all watched Zodiac together in the theater recently.
Man, when he said goodbye, we all could not look at each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
I had forgotten how close
it was very early
to the way that you guys always say
also, yes.
goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.